Now, in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how high performing executives, top producing advisors like you are losing up to 40, 100 pounds or more, getting off prescription medications, and reclaiming their energy and drive that built their careers in months, not years. So the man in the mirror finally matches the man who built the life you're now ready to enjoy. Now, this is not another fad diet, it's not a gimmick or a quick fix, and it's definitely not another prescription with a better label. It's a precision protocol that helps you shred fat, build lean muscle, restore metabolic efficiency, and lower your biological age, improving not just how long you live, but how powerfully you perform through every year of that life. Not by adding more prescriptions, by reactivating the inner pharmacy your body was already designed to run. To show you exactly how this works, we're going to cover three things today. Now, first, the healthcare continuum. Now, most men have never seen a map of their own health. They know what their doctor told them at their last visit, but they've never seen the full spectrum, from biological decline to true peak performance. See, the healthcare continuum is that map. It shows you exactly where you're operating today and where your current choices are taking you. Because by the time most men realize how far they drifted, they've already lost years they can't get back. Second, the Wealthy Body Index. This is your personal biological scorecard, a clear measurement of where your body is operating today and the direction it's heading. Not based on how you feel, not based on a basic blood panel, but on the five biological systems that determine your metabolism, hormones, energy, body composition, and physical health. Today, you're going to calculate that number. This is going to be the first honest look, I bet, at actually what's driving the gap between the man you are and the man you know you're capable of becoming. Now, third, your five biological KPIs, the five systems that control your weight, hormones, energy, recovery, and ability to perform under pressure. When these systems are aligned, the body performs as designed. When even one breaks down, however, everything downstream suffers. Most men have two, three, sometimes four quietly working against them right now. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which of yours needs attention and what fixing them at the root cause actually looks like. Now, one more thing before we begin. Link below this video is your Wealthy Body Scorecard. Download it now and have it ready because we're going to use it. And by the end of this masterclass, you will have your number. Now, let me start with something that may surprise you. Most successful men over 40 who are struggling with their weight, their energy, and their hormones are not struggling because they lack discipline. See, the men that I work with are some of the most disciplined men that I meet. They build companies, manage teams, protect generational wealth, carry enormous responsibility, and they execute at the highest level every single day. And yet, somehow, that same discipline that built everything they have, well, it doesn't seem to work when it comes to their own body. Now, they exercise and they try diets and they push harder, and yet the body keeps working against them no matter what they try. Until one day, the man staring back at them in the mirror doesn't reflect the success they've built. Now, if that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. It's not because you're broken, and it's definitely not because you're just quote unquote getting older. It's because almost everything you've been told about fixing declining health after 40 is focused on the surface, while the real biological systems that control your metabolism, your hormones, and your energy have been quietly breaking down underneath. And no one has ever taken the time to explain why it's happening, show you where to look, or teach you how to properly prepare your body for the second half of your life. Now, for most of the men I work with, they can remember exactly when that shifted. Not a sudden collapse, it's a quiet drift. The recovery that used to take a day now takes three. The mental edge that used to show up on demand now requires effort to find. The body that used to respond to hard work started responding with resistance instead. Now you adapted because that's what high performing men do. But adapting to a slower engine is not the same as accepting one. And somewhere in the back of your mind, it's likely you have never fully accepted it. Now, let me give you an example from an actual client. I met Todd on the golf course not long ago. Successful wealth advisor, restaurant owner who was pushing north of 326 pounds when he found out what I do, rebuilding the health of high performing men naturally. He stopped me cold with a reason as to why, one I had never heard in my 33 years of doing this work. He said, Dr. Andreas, I actually used to tell my wife, honey, it's good for you that I keep putting on weight because nobody's hitting on me anymore. Now, men have all kinds of reasons, and if we're being honest, excuses. They tell themselves to justify where they are. And Todd's was one of the most interesting I had ever heard. But when you really think about it, it was also a form of self preservation. Here's why that moment matters more than it may seem. So, your outward success rewards your sacrifice. The long hours, the travel, the client dinners, the cocktails that quietly become a nightly ritual just to take the edge off the pressure. But almost no one is looking at the man underneath the suit and asking a much more important question. Are you actually okay? Not because they don't care, but because your success is so loud, it drowns out the one thing that has been quietly breaking down underneath it all. So you do what Todd did. You find a story that makes it okay. You call it a trade off. You call it the season of life you're in. And then somewhere along the way, you stopped expecting more from your most precious asset that drives it all, your own body. And that was Todd, fighting to reclaim his health for over 20 years. CrossFit, P90X, Orange Theory, 5 years on the elliptical, 3 to 5 days a week, keto, carnivore, 3 years of intermittent fasting, even GLP-1s, lost 20 pounds, and then nothing. Then his doctor looked at everything he was doing and said, Todd, you're the healthiest fat guy I've ever met. Now I ask you, can a man carrying that much excess body fat, testosterone near zero, on multiple medications be healthy, much less operate at peak performance? Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. But that's exactly what conventional medicine does when it has no answers. It redefines the standard downward to match the result it can deliver. Now, fast forward 10 months, Todd lost 115 pounds, dropped to single digit body fat, reduced his medications he had been on for years, and his wife looked at him and said 4 words. This is the Todd I married. Here's what it took to get there and why it has everything to do with you. I'm telling you Todd's story first, before credentials, before the blueprint, because there's a man watching this right now who sees some part of himself in Todd. Now, maybe you're not 326 pounds. Maybe your story looks different. But somewhere between where you are today and where Todd was, well, there's a gap you know shouldn't be there. What happened to Todd was not magic, not luck, not genetics. It was 5 biological systems inside his body that had been quietly breaking down for years. Systems that no diet, no workout, and no protocol had ever addressed. And once we identified and rebuilt them, well, his body did exactly what it was designed to do. Now, before I show you the blueprint, I want to tell you who I am and why you should believe any of this is actually possible for you. My name is Dr. Andreas Betcher, and I've been doing this work for over 33 years in peak performance health, as I mentioned earlier. I'm a board-certified chiropractic physician, clinical nutrition, and functional medicine, a bachelor's degree in health and exercise science. Now, maybe those credentials impress you, maybe they don't. Before you decide, consider this. The word doctor literally means teacher. When was the last time yours actually taught you how to be healthy? Not manage a condition, not maintain a prescription, but rebuild the biology that prevents those conditions from forming in the first place. A true physician reaches for the prescription pad last and asks why before asking what to prescribe. Now, if you believe that, you already know conventional medicine has been letting you down. And you're exactly who this was built for. See, when I built one of the largest wellness centers in the country, we didn't just manage symptoms, we restored function at the root. The proof sat in the corner of our wellness center, a trash can. For the medications our clients no longer needed because we fixed the cause, not the label. Treating everyday, successful, educated men like you, including physicians, surgeons, cardiologists, and even pharmacists, men who had every pharmaceutical option available to them and chose a different path, including an NFL team position. Now, he has access to every pharmaceutical, every peptide, every optimization protocol available to elite athletes at the highest level in the world. When he wanted his own health and fitness back, well, he came to me. 30 pounds gone, energy restored, inflammation resolved, sleep finally working. In his own words, felt like myself again. And the biggest compliment of them all, you guys are doing it right. Now, when an NFL team physician with the full weight of modern medicine behind him chooses this path for himself, well, that says more than any credential I could list. Now, Dr. Kellum and I still collaborate today. When a client needs deeper medical evaluation, we work together directly. But I want to be completely transparent with you. I didn't build this from a textbook. I built it from my own body, from my own challenges, and from a moment in my early 30s that nearly cost me everything. When I was building that wellness center, by every outward measure, succeeding. But underneath the surface, something very different was happening. My body had crossed into a level of biological breakdown I couldn't feel, not yet. And that invisible gap between what I felt and what was actually happening inside of me, that's what I'm going to show you next. Because I'm willing to bet some version of that gap exists in you right now. And once you see the map, you'll never look at your health the same way again. Now, this is the same map we gave men before you who started exactly where you are, watching this interactive masterclass. Now, Christopher, he was 52 years old, 301 pounds, on TRT, and his testosterone was artificially spiked above 1,200 nanograms per deciliter. And he was still gaining weight, still exhausted, and even facing statins and blood pressure medications to boot. His doctors had run out of answers. We stopped the injections with his physicians, identified the breakdown across all 5 systems, and rebuilt them one by one. 4 months later, 63 pounds gone, testosterone rebounding naturally, his medicine cabinet is empty, and he's feeling better than he did 20 years ago. Now, these were results his doctors said weren't possible. Now, Jason, standing on the eve of his 60th birthday, see, Jason had made a decision. His second half would be better than his first. Now, TRT wasn't even an option because his body completely rejected it. 90 days later, 20 pounds of fat gone, inflammation down 64%, blood pressure medication cut in half, almost gone, testosterone climbing naturally, and today he's keeping up with his 28-year-old son-in-law in the gym. Now, Cole is a different story. He's a 46-year-old veteran and a competitive CrossFitter. Now, Cole is the man who thinks he's doing fine. And in many ways, he was. Competing in CrossFit, discipline, and his testosterone in the 600s. Now, most men his age would call that acceptable. His question was simply this: am I at my ceiling, or is there another level? 90 days later, well, his testosterone shot well over 900, a 42% increase with zero pharmaceutical intervention. And his triglycerides cut in half. See, Cole didn't need to be rescued. He needed precision. And for the man watching this who thinks his numbers are acceptable, well, Cole's story is for you. See, acceptable is not the same as optimal. And optimal is what this protocol is built for. Now, Jim, at the age of 42, had been thriving on the carnivore diet. He was trying to figure things out on his own, tweaking what was already working. But his testosterone dropped and estrogen climbed. We identified the exact variables and corrected them. 90 days, 20 pounds gone, testosterone over doubled, and his drive completely restored. Then there's John, a television executive, who stood in front of the mirror 40 pounds overweight and said out loud, "It's only halftime." 6 months later, 30 pounds gone, energy through the roof, and production skyrocketed, and his confidence, priceless. Now, David, a CEO at 51 years of age, was suffering from severe Crohn's disease. Doctors were scheduling surgery. We focused on the root cause, surgery canceled. No medications, back to racing superbikes again against men half his age. Oh, then there's Charles, who had not only reclaimed his edge, but crushed his inflammation and ignited his drive again. His karate instructor said it best when he saw the change. Your doctor is not maintaining a broken down minivan. He's building a Ferrari. Different men, different starting points, different challenges. The same outcome for all the men featured on our website. Because when you stop guessing and start measuring, well, guess what? The body does exactly what it was designed to do. So let's grab your scorecard and begin with one of the most basic questions I've asked audiences around the world. What is health? Most people define it as, well, I feel fine. My energy is decent and nothing really hurts. Not wrong, but is how you feel the true measure of peak performance health? Now, before you answer, let me ask you something more specific. What is the first symptom of cancer? What is the first symptom of diabetes? What is the first symptom of cardiovascular disease? And for many men, the first symptom of cardiovascular disease is a heart attack, and 50% of those are fatal. So I'll ask you again, is how you feel the true measure of your health? Because if we agree it isn't, health is not the absence of symptoms or disease. It is the full expression of the man you were engineered to be, regardless of age. Mentally sharp, physically strong, biologically free, and fully able to enjoy the life you've worked so hard to create. And that definition matters because the standard your physician operates from dictates everything in what gets tested, what gets offered, and ultimately the direction your health takes from here. So ask yourself this: does your doctor's own health reflect the standard you want to emulate? Because a physician can only take you as far as the map they're working from. And if that map stops at average for your age, well, that's exactly where you will end up. Now, we all know what average gets you in business. Doesn't your health deserve the same standard? And it's only halftime. We operate from a different standard entirely, a standard we call peak performance health. And it's level one on the healthcare continuum you'll see on your Wealthy Body scorecard. At level one, your metabolic engine runs clean. Hormones are balanced and cells are repairing. Sleep actually restoring you, and you have energy steady all day. Your mind is sharp, your drive is intact, you're lean, strong, fit, and you wake up ready to perform physically, mentally, and professionally. This is the standard. Not extraordinary, and it's not reserved for elite athletes. This is simply what the human body is designed to express when the right systems are supported. So the question becomes, what interferes with our ability to maintain or achieve peak performance at any age? Well, one word: stress. Level two on the healthcare continuum. Now, not the stress that drives peak performance, not the productive pressure that built your career. It's the chronic, unrelenting stress that accumulates over years without being properly addressed. Now, it comes in three forms. There's physical stress, old injuries, accidents, sleep deprivation, overtraining, sedentary work. For sitting 8 to 10 hours a day has been called the new smoking. It's not a metaphor, and it's true. Then there's chemical stress: ultra processed food, alcohol, endocrine disruptors, pesticides, environmental toxins, and yes, even properly prescribed medications, which we'll come back to at level five. Then, of course, emotional stress, the weight of life itself, financial pressure, relationship strain, raising a family, the constant demands of work, responsibility, and deadlines. But here's what almost no one talks about: stress doesn't just come from the outside. The way we try to cope with that stress often adds even more stress to the system. The nightly cocktail for a quick dopamine hit, the food that numbs, the habits that feel like relief in the moment, but quietly amplify the very stress that you're trying to escape. Stack enough of those together: emotional stress, poor sleep, alcohol, processed food, overtraining, under recovery, and the body eventually breaks down. Which brings us to level three: dis-ease. Not disease, not yet. Now, I write this deliberately as dis-ease, hyphenated, because the body is no longer at ease. See, the body has to lose function first before it can manifest itself into outward symptoms or disease. This is the gap, the space where dysfunction is real and measurable, but has not yet crossed the threshold conventional medicine recognizes. Now, Todd lived here for 20 years. Meanwhile, his five biological systems were quietly breaking down underneath. Now, how many men do you know living here right now that are feeling fine while their biology is already drifting towards something they can't see yet? Which brings us to level 4, silent disease. This is where I was in my early 30s, building that wellness center. Beers on the golf course, hot dogs at the turn, convincing myself the success I was building was worth the trade off. Now, I felt fine. That was the problem. Because beneath the surface, non visible blood in my urine, inflammatory markers, and insulin levels off the chart, 35 pounds heavier than I am today, and my body fat well past 25%. Crashing in the afternoon, warning lights I dismissed as normal for a man pushing hard. My body had already crossed into level 4 without a single symptom I could feel. Had I ignored those signals, there's a real chance I'd be on dialysis right now, waiting for a transplant. See, the body whispers first before it can ever scream, and I almost didn't hear it. And that's when a man crosses into level 5, active disease. The diagnosis is no longer subtle, it's undeniable. And this is exactly where the conventional medical system was designed to operate. Because now you feel it. Now you go to the doctor, and now the prescription pad comes out. But before you run to your local pharmacy, ask yourself, will this orange little mini bottle return you to level 1, peak performance? Almost invariably, the answer is no. At best, it brings you back to level 4 because if you stop taking the medication, what happens? The symptoms return because the underlying cause or causes were never resolved, only masked while the cause continues to compound. Now, don't misunderstand. There is a time and place for medication, but every medication is also a chemical stress. And the commercials say it better than I ever could. And you've seen them all. Family playing in the park, beautiful day, soft music, and then a voice speeds up like an auctioneer. May cause nausea, vomiting, liver, kidney damage, increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular disease, and in some cases, suicidal thoughts. Now, those don't sound like a side effect. Those sound like an obituary. Every medication depletes micronutrients. It disrupts cellular health and creates new silent disease, which leads to new symptoms, which leads to the next prescription, and the pharmaceutical treadmill begins. You're running hard and you're going nowhere while your medicine cabinet expands, cycling between level 3 and level 5, while the real opportunity sits at level 2, ignored. So the question becomes this: at what level of this continuum do you want to live, operate, and perform in the second half of your life? You didn't end up here because of bad luck, bad genetics, or age alone. You ended up here because biological systems inside your body have been quietly pulling you down this continuum, and no one has ever given you the tools to stop it. That changes today, because if there's one thing I want you to walk away with is this: aging is inevitable, but how you age is a choice. Now, in your world, you track everything: every dollar, every return, every risk. You don't manage what you don't measure, and your health is no different. Now, most doctors look at a dozen or so markers and call it a day. Now, we analyze up to 415 biological indicators because health is not a single number on a lab report. It's a pattern across 5 interconnected systems. And when you know how to read that pattern, well, your health is no longer a mystery. Now, score yourself on each biological KPI as we go. 6 means strong, dialed in. 1 means struggling or ignoring it. Now, be honest, because no one else is watching. Your score is your starting point, not your verdict. KPI number 1, your metabolic health. Now, one of the most important systems we evaluate in the Wealthy Body Index is metabolic health. Your body's ability to regulate blood sugar, produce stable energy throughout the day, and maintain a lean, strong physique without extreme restriction. Now, when this system starts drifting off course, the signals show up long before a doctor ever labels it as a disease, i.e., diabetes. Can your body maintain a lean physique without severe dieting? Or does weight slowly creep up no matter how clean you eat? Do you crash in the afternoon, crave something sweet right after a meal? Wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. with your mind racing? Are you struggling to concentrate without caffeine? These are not random symptoms, and they are not simply signs of getting older. They are early indicators that your metabolism is losing its ability to properly regulate blood sugar, insulin, and cellular energy production. Left unchecked, Well, that process gradually develops into insulin resistance and broader metabolic dysfunction, often years before a standard blood test ever flags it as a problem. Now, the more of these you answered yes to, the lower your score. Mark your score. KPI number 2, silent inflammation. Now, this one deceives even the most disciplined men because chronic low grade inflammation does not always announce itself with obvious pain. Instead, it shows up as sleep that doesn't restore you, persistent brain fog, joints that feel stiff in the morning, recovery that takes longer than it used to, and you have skin flare ups or worsening seasonal allergies, acid reflux that's quietly becoming routine, low grade irritability that wasn't there a decade ago. You feel functional, but you're not sharp. Now, none of these feel dramatic on their own. Together, they point to one thing: chronic systemic inflammation. Now, I know this one personally from the most difficult chapter in my life. See, in my late 40s, I lost my mother far too young. 7 months later, well, my father took his own life. Two of the most important people in my world gone in less than a year. Now, if you've ever carried grief while still being the man everyone else depends on, you know exactly what I mean. See, the work doesn't stop, the calls keep coming, and you keep executing. And somewhere underneath all of it, the body is keeping score. My inflammation spiked and my testosterone crashed. And for a man who had built his entire identity around strength and resilience, that was one of the hardest things to admit. Now, I felt fine. I told myself I was fine, but I wasn't. And that's the deception of chronic inflammation. It doesn't feel like inflammation, it feels like an off day, a slow week, a season of life, until the labs tell you otherwise. Inflammation does not always feel like inflammation. It leaves biological fingerprints that only show up if you know what to look for. And those fingerprints matter. Chronic inflammation disrupts hormone production, it impairs mitochondrial function, and it damages the inner lining of arteries and accelerates cognitive decline. Now, the connection between persistent inflammation and cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and neurodegenerative disease is no longer emerging science. It is settled. The more of these you recognize, the lower your score. Mark your score. Now, KPI number 3, gut health. Your gut is not a digestive waste system. It houses 70% of your immune system and produces over 90% of your body's serotonin, regulating mood, sleep, focus, and emotional resilience, and controls a significant portion of your hormone metabolism, including how testosterone is produced and estrogen is cleared. When this system breaks down, the signals rarely feel like a gut problem. Now, do you wake up unrested despite a full night's sleep, bloating or reflux with no clear cause? Food sensitivities that weren't there 10 years ago, midsection weight that doesn't respond to diet or exercise, skin flare ups, and low grade inflammation your doctor can't explain. See, these are not random inconveniences. They are often the surface expression of a deeper problem: intestinal permeability or leaky gut. When the gut lining is damaged by chronic stress, alcohol, processed food, and poor sleep, just as a few examples, bacterial fragments can leak into circulation. Your immune system fires back with systemic inflammation, showing up as food sensitivities, brain fog, hormonal disruption, and skin disorders, often without a single obvious digestive system. This is why two men can follow the exact same nutrition plan and get completely different results. One man's healthy food is another man's inflammatory trigger. And without testing, you'll never know which foods are quietly working against you. Now, the more of these you recognize, well, you know what to do. KPI number 4, body composition. Now, most men think body composition is about appearance. It isn't. It's about biology. And in men over 40, excess body fat is one of the most powerful forces that are working against your overall health and longevity. Here's the mechanism most doctors will never explain, a few anyway. Fat tissue produces an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase converts testosterone directly into estrogen, and the more excess fat you carry, well, the more active aromatase is. And the more testosterone then eventually gets converted into estrogen. Now, this creates a self reinforcing cycle because more fat drives testosterone down. Lower testosterone makes fat harder to burn, which drives more aromatase. Round and round you go. Excess fat also releases inflammatory cytokines that damage androgen receptor sensitivity. meaning the testosterone you do produce becomes less effective. And the cardiovascular reality is just a start. See, every pound of fat generates approximately 5 miles of new blood vessels. Now, 25 extra pounds means 125 miles of additional vascular demand on a heart not built for it. Todd's doctor called him the healthiest fat guy he'd ever met. Remember? Well, he was wrong. At 326 pounds, Todd was carrying a hormonal disruption machine and a cardiovascular time bomb, neither of which will always appear on a standard blood panel. So ask yourself honestly, has your waist been quietly expanding despite your best efforts? Do you carry weight around your midsection even if the rest of you looks lean? Has your body stopped responding to what used to work? Do you feel softer and less capable than you did 10 years ago? These are not vanity concerns. They are metabolic signals. Most men should be closer to 15% body fat, but not for appearance, but because above that threshold, hormonal disruption, insulin resistance, and inflammatory load begin to compound in ways that accelerate every other system's decline. Your waist is often the earliest warning sign. The mirror, when you're honest with it, rarely lies. Mark your score. KPI number 5, physical capacity. Now, this is the KPI that reveals everything because physical capacity is not the cause of the problem. It is the result. It is the output of the 4 systems either functioning or failing beneath the surface. Now, most men measure their physical capacity by whether they still make it to the gym. This is not the standard. Ask yourself this: can you carry luggage through an airport without arriving winded if the wheels are broken? Take a flight of stairs without your heart pounding at the top? Sustain real intensity through a full workout, not just for the first 20 minutes? Bench press your ideal body weight at least 10 times? Complete 10 pull ups like your life depended on it? Push hard on Tuesday and recover fully by Wednesday? Grip strength, VO2 max, functional muscle mass, and recovery capacity are now among the strongest predictors of longevity in the medical literature. These are not vanity metrics again. These are survival metrics. See, many of the men watching this carry a fear that they've never said out loud. Not a fear of dying, but a fear of diminishing, of watching their kids and their grandchildren from a chair instead of being in the game with them, of building a retirement they don't have the capacity to actually live. That fear is not irrational. It is your biology communicating something important to you. Physical capacity is the output. When the 4 systems above it are rebuilt, it responds. See, Todd didn't just lose 115 pounds. He became a man who shows up fully to his family, his business, and every room he walks into, and I've seen it firsthand. Now mark your score. Add up your numbers. Your total is out of 30. What is your number? Record your score on your Wealthy Body scorecard and circle it. That number is the most honest thing on the page in front of you right now. I want you to look at the number you wrote down, not at what you hoped it would be, at what it actually is. That number does not lie, and part of you already knew it before you wrote it down. Where are you on the index, and how long have you been there, and more importantly, which direction are you heading towards? Because what this score is really showing you is something far deeper: how your biological age may compare to your chronological age. Are you aging faster than the calendar says you should, or slower? Are your daily choices moving you towards peak performance, or are you circling between levels 4 and 5, bouncing between doctor visits and an expanding medicine cabinet while the underlying systems continue to decline? Or are you like many of the high performing men I work with who've decided they'd rather never reach those lower levels in the first place? Now, you can hire someone to manage your investments. You can hire someone to run your company, but you cannot outsource your health or hire someone to live inside your body. No one else experiences your fatigue. No one else carries your inflammation. And no one else lies awake at 3 a.m. with the quiet awareness that something is off and that you've been putting off dealing with it longer than you want to admit. At some point, every man has to stop delegating his health and start owning it. Now, owning it means getting the right data, working with the right people, surrounding yourself with the right community, and refusing to manage symptoms while calling it good enough. That is precisely what the Wealthy Body Protocol was built to do. Now, for some of the men watching this, you already know. You've seen enough, you've scored yourself, and something in you has already decided that the second half deserves to be played at a much higher level. Now, if that's you, just know this: the structure, the support, the community, and the protocol to help you do exactly that already exists. Below this video is a short application, 3 minutes to complete, that will take you to my online calendar. This is not a sales call. It is a 45-minute diagnostic session where we map out your biology, identify the systems driving your challenges, and build the most direct path from your current score to level 1. You will leave with more clarity about your health than likely any physician has ever given you, whether we work together or not. If that's you, click below, apply, and book your Zoom consultation. For everyone else, stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is the exact system that produced every result you've heard about today, and why it works when so many conventional approaches fail. Here at It's Only Halftime, we don't play in the arena of average health. We operate in the arena of optimized health, peak performance, and pharmaceutical independence whenever possible. Now, the way we get there is through a precise 3-phase process, fully customized to your biology, biomarkers, genetics, and lifestyle, and it's typically completed in approximately 6 months, depending on your starting point. Now, phase 1 is our precision diagnostics. Now, most medical visits evaluate a dozen or so data points and send you out the door with a prescription. We take a different approach entirely. Like I said, up to 415 biological indicators, comprehensive hormone panels, thyroid function, insulin, metabolic markers, inflammatory signals, notoriously missing or absent from the lab results that are reviewed every single week. Advanced gut health testing to assess microbiome balance and intestinal integrity. Systems that directly drive hormone signaling, immune function, and metabolic performance. Food sensitivity testing unique to your biology allows us to build nutrition plans that actually agree with your system, because many men are eating foods they believe are healthy that are quietly wrecking their gut and driving inflammation. Comprehensive genetic testing that analyzes over 134 different genetic SNPs to map your nutrigenomic pathways, optimizing everything from metabolism and hormone balance to training, recovery, supplementation, and long-term resilience. Now, your internist has almost certainly never ordered this level of testing. Now, this is not a criticism. It's simply the difference between reacting to disease and taking an offensive approach or strategy towards your health. Now, before I walk you through phase 2 and phase 3, I want to address something directly. If you're sitting there thinking, I've already tried a lot of things, I hear that. And I want to explain something most practitioners will never tell you. You didn't fail those approaches. Those approaches likely failed you. And here's exactly why. Every diet was designed for the average man, not your insulin sensitivity, not your food sensitivities, not your genetic variants that determine how your body metabolizes macronutrients or what's best for you. It's a template system applied to a biology it was never built for. Every training program was built around effort, not around your specific hormonal levels, inflammatory load, or mitochondrial function or capacity could actually support. See, pushing harder into a broken system doesn't rebuild it. It accelerates the breakdown. The supplements you tried were generic formulations aimed at deficiencies you may or may not have even had. Without knowing your actual biomarkers, you were taking a financial shot in the dark. And TRT, or any hormonal intervention applied to a body still running 5 biological breakdowns, is like pouring premium fuel into an engine with a cracked block. The number on the lab report might improve, but the man doesn't, even if it makes you feel better in the moment. So remember, Christopher's testosterone had spiked to over 1,200 on TRT, still gaining weight, still exhausted, and still facing medications, because the 5 systems underneath were never addressed. And that is not a Christopher problem. That is a methodology problem. one that has been repeated on millions of men who deserve better answers. Now, here's the truth that changes everything. Every number below a 6 on your scorecard represents a system that has been quietly working against everything you've likely tried. Not because you lack discipline, not because you chose the wrong program, but because not one approach you've tried started by identifying which systems were broken before building a plan. That's the only thing that was ever missing. Not more effort, the right target. And that's what phase one is built to do. And while we're gathering all this data, we get to work immediately adjusting your nutrition, your habits, and recovery from day one while removing the physical, chemical, and metabolic stressors that have been pushing your biology in the wrong direction. Because sometimes it's not about what we give you, sometimes it's subtraction, taking away the self sabotaging choices before adding anything else. And when those stressors are addressed, the body corrects itself with remarkable speed. And within days, most men can start feeling significantly different. Their bloating might disappear, their energy can start to stabilize, their brain fog starts to lift, and their sleep starts to improve. In other words, you begin to feel like yourself again. Phase two, your precision protocol. By this point, we understand your physiology at a level most doctors never reach. Now, we begin correcting it precisely, systematically, and in the right order for your specific biology. Nutrition designed around your metabolism, genetics, gut health, and food sensitivities. Supplementation targeted to your actual biochemical deficiencies, not marketing claims. Training engineered to restore insulin sensitivity, rebuild lean muscle, and elevate your KPIs while fitting into the reality of your life. We don't hand you a stack of lab results and say this is high and this is low. We produce a comprehensive analysis, what the data means, why it matters, and exactly what we're going to do about it. Data points you will understand and use for the rest of your life. Because our goal isn't just better numbers, it's a man who finally understands his own physiology and never has to guess again. Everything is then built directly into our private IOH client app, including your training protocols, rep schemes, meal plans, supplement protocols, accountability systems, progress tracking. And you're also brought into our private community, a boardroom of men committed to raising the bar on what's possible in the second half of life. And we design all of this to work inside the reality of your life. I understand how busy you are. I've worked with high performing professionals for over 3 decades, executives, advisors, entrepreneurs, physicians. There's no restaurant, no airport, no travel schedule that prevents a man from taking care of his physiology once he understands how. Because somewhere out there is a man facing challenges far greater than yours who is still getting it done. Eventually, the excuses disappear. Every man reaches the same decision point. Do you want reasons or do you want results? Within 30 to 60 days, the transformation becomes visible. Fat is coming off, the muscle is shaping, the face is leaner, clothes are fitting differently, and your energy starts to skyrocket. Strength returning, and the people around you begin to notice before you even say a word. Now, before the mirror changes, the mind does. Clarity returns first. Best work hours expand from a narrow morning window into the full day. The mental intensity your professional life demands becomes sustainable and not something you white knuckle your way through. Then, around the 90-day mark, we run labs again and something powerful happens. The data starts catching up to what you're already feeling. You stop being a man trying to fix his health and you start becoming the man whose physiology is built for performance. Now, once a man experiences that, there is no going back, and that's exactly what I want for you. Phase three, optimization and elevation, is where everything accelerates. Now, we'll run your labs again towards the end of your protocol because your biology is dynamic, not static. We reassess, rebuild the report, and recalibrate. Training, supplementation, and nutrition adjusted based on how your physiology has actually responded. The same way you track KPIs in business. Now you're doing it with your health, not hoping, but knowing. This is where men begin moving consistently toward level one. That energy is rising, the recovery is improving, the body composition continues to shift. Many men feel better in their 40s and 50s and 60s than they did in their 20s and 30s. But the most profound change in phase three isn't on a lab report, it's the standard you begin holding yourself to. Nearly every man enters this phase with modest goals. "Oh, I just want to lose 20 pounds, sleep better, and have some more energy." By week 16, those goals are gone, not because they failed, but because they blew past them. The ceiling moved. What once felt ambitious now feels like the floor. Now, I know what that shift feels like because I've lived it. After the hardest years of my life, the grief, the crash, the moment I had to rebuild myself the same way I'd rebuilt thousands of patients, I didn't just recover, I decided to find out how far the ceiling could actually move. I entered my first Masters men's physique competition at the age of 47. My testosterone didn't just recover, it quadrupled naturally. No injections, no peptides, and no prescriptions. Now, I went on to compete as a 3 time Ironman triathlete, not because I had it easy, but because once you've rebuilt the foundation, the body will surprise you with what it's still capable of. Today at 56, I'm medication free, competing in golf at a 6 handicap, in the best condition of my adult life, not despite what I went through, because of what I learned from it. That is what phase three is built for. Not just recovering what you lost, but discovering what you never knew you actually still have. This isn't motivation, this is identity. When your biology operates at level one, inflammation resolved, metabolism's functioning as it's designed, the man inside the body raises his standards automatically. And once you've lived there, even for 30 days, you cannot unknow it. That energy, the clarity, and the way you carry yourself into every room. See, there is no finish line to health. The same discipline that built your career applies here, continuing to lead, improve, and raise the bar. And the return on this investment is extraordinary. Looking better, feeling stronger, performing at your peak, restoring pride in your body, and restoring pride in your life. Now, something else happens that many men don't expect. Now, the wives that I've spoken with over the years, they love you. They're proud of everything you've built, but many quietly carry one concern: whether their husband will be there for the long haul. See, when your health transforms, that concern becomes something else entirely different: pride. Remember what Charles' karate instructor said? Your doctor is not maintaining a broken down minivan, he's building a Ferrari. Well, his wife said it even better: "We should have paid this guy double because I finally have my husband back." And I suspect that's something you want for your family too, because this is about translating the success you've built in the boardroom into every area of your life that actually matters, the ones no amount of money can ever replace. By now, I hope you recognize, as I mentioned before, you are not broken and you're not defective simply because birthdays are stacking up. What you are is likely under optimized for the second half of life, living inside a system that's designed to simply manage symptoms and not help you thrive. You came here today because some part of you already knew that. There's far more potential inside your biology than traditional medicine has ever given you credit for. Everything you've learned today has confirmed it. So the question is, what will you do with what you know? You have your scorecard in front of you right now. You know your number, you know which level you're at, and you know what that score means for your energy, your hormones, your metabolic health, and the trajectory of your life. Intention has never been the problem. You've tried things, you've invested in your health before, you've known for some time that something needed to change. The gap has never been willingness. It's been not having the right system, one built around your specific biology and actual data. Not a template for the average man, but a protocol that is specifically designed for you. You hold that scorecard right now, and it tells you exactly where the system is broken down. Now, for the first time, you're not guessing and you're not pushing harder at the wrong problem. You have the map. The only question is whether you're going to use it or not. I say this not to be dramatic, but because you deserve honesty over comfort. Neither of us are getting any younger. The longer you wait, the more costly this becomes to address, the more dangerous the trajectory becomes. And that is assuming you get a second chance to fix it. Now, you and I can both name men we grew up with: strong, driven, full of plans, and some of them are no longer here, not because of aging, but because of neglect, because the signals were there and nobody connected the dots, because they told themselves there was more time. I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm trying to respect you enough to tell you the truth because the cost of waiting is not zero. It has never been zero. So your kids are not watching your portfolio. They're not tracking your title. They're watching you, whether you fight for yourself, whether you show up with energy, whether you are truly present or just physically in the room. Todd told me the thing that mattered most wasn't the 115 pounds, not the labs, not coming off the majority of his medications. It was the moment his daughter, Anna, looked up at him and said, "Dad, I've never seen skinny dad before." That's the moment that doesn't show up on a lab report. That's the one that stays with you. What do your kids see when they look at you right now? A year from now, they will see one of two men: the man who finally said enough, or the man who had every reason, every intention, and still waited. Which man shows up in that moment? Every man I've described today, Todd, Jason, Christopher, Jimbo, Cole, Dr. Kellum, they each walked a version of the same road I walked. Different starting points, different stories, and the same decision. They stopped waiting for the right time. They stopped accepting a standard that was quietly robbing them of the life they'd worked so hard to build. And they chose to find out what was actually possible in the second half. Now, 33 years of results don't lie. Stubborn body fat gone, medications eliminated, energy, drive, and strength restored, not through shortcuts, but through precision, through finally understanding what was actually broken and fixing it at the root. See, these aren't health outcomes, they are life outcomes. And every single one of them started with one decision, the same one you're facing right now. This is not a health decision, it is a legacy decision. The only question is whether you'll make it today or wish someday that you had. The standard for men's health has quietly been lowered for decades. Chronic fatigue, weight gain, declining hormones, a growing list of prescriptions, all reframed as normal aging. Well, it isn't, and we prove it wrong every single day. This program is not for every man, though. It's not a diet, it's not a supplement, it's not some magic shortcut that lets you escape personal responsibility. It is a complete biological rebuild executed with precision, measured with data, and optimized specifically for you. Maximum results, minimum wasted effort, the ultimate return on the most important asset you will ever own. It requires one thing most programs never ask for, though: honesty. The kind that forces a man to look at the reflection in the mirror and the numbers on his scorecard without excuses and without compromise. Now, if that's you, below this video is a short application. 3 minutes, answer in the same way that you would approach any high stakes decision in your professional life. Once complete, it will be taken to my calendar to book a complimentary consultation. Now, on this second half strategy session, here's exactly what will happen. First, we will map precisely where you are, your history, your numbers, the specific biological patterns your body is running right now. Not a surface read, but a complete picture. Second, we design your personal protocol, not a template, the most direct path from your current score to level 1. Maximum results, minimum wasted effort, and KPI data you can measure, trust, and build on for life. Third, if it makes sense to work together, well, we'll talk about that. If it doesn't, you'll leave our call knowing more about your biology than most men discover in a lifetime of doctor visits. Now, the men I work with manage 7, 8-figure assets. They don't make high stakes decisions without clarity, and your health deserves the same standard. So let me ask you something you'd ask any client carrying a risk they hadn't fully priced. What is a man worth at full capacity? Not what he earns, what he produces. When his mind is sharp, his energy is consistent, his recovery is complete, and he walks into every room projecting the kind of presence that closes business, earns trust, and leads people. Now, what is the same man worth at 60 or 70% of that? The decisions made with brain fog instead of clarity, the relationships managed with irritability instead of patience, the opportunities pursued with diminished drive instead of full conviction. The afternoons that used to be your best hours are now requiring caffeine just to get through. Now, for a man producing at your level, The performance gap between optimized biology and declining biology is not a wellness issue. It's a revenue issue, a leadership issue, and a legacy issue. The question has never been whether you can afford to address this. The question is, what does it already cost you not to? Every year, a high performing man operates with unresolved metabolic dysfunction, chronic inflammation, and declining hormones. He is making decisions, managing relationships, and showing up to the most important moments of his life at a biological discount. You would never manage a client's portfolio that way. You would never allow a key asset to quietly depreciate while telling yourself you'll address it next quarter. Your biology is the asset everything else runs on. The only one you cannot replace, cannot outsource, and cannot recover in full if you wait too long. You already understand the power of compounding. You've explained it to clients likely 1,000 times. Biological decline compounds as well. The difference is it compounds against you. The men I work with don't invest in this because it's a health decision. They invest because a fully optimized biological platform, a sharp mind, stable energy, hormones, and functioning the way they were designed to, returns more than almost anything else they could put capital into. Now, Todd told me he would have paid over $250,000 for what this protocol gave him in his health and his productivity. Not because of a number on a scale, but because of what it meant to show up as a father, as a husband, and a leader, operating at the level he always knew he was capable of. And now, one final thought before you decide. Right now, you're at halftime, not at the end, halftime. The score up to this point does not define what is possible for you from here. The injuries, the setbacks, the years you gave to everything and everyone else, none of that determines your second half. Halftime is the moment that has always separated the men who win the second half from the men who coast to the final whistle wondering what might have been. Now, you've built something real. You created a life worth protecting. The question now is whether the body carrying that life can keep up with everything you still intend to do. The answer to that question is not fixed. It's a choice. The men who win the second half are not the ones who have fewer obstacles. They are the ones who decided at halftime that the second half would be different. Every man who has made this decision has told me some version of the same thing. I wish I had done this over 10 years ago. You've watched this entire presentation. You filled out the scorecard. You know your number. That is not what a man does who has given up. That is what a man does who is ready to win the second half of life. This is your life, and life is not a dress rehearsal. Your second half starts now. Apply today.